All right. Jim feels, in his latest column in Barrett Media, uh, Jim feels essentially that we lack leadership in media on some level. That's a general way to put it. Jim, could you maybe speak more specifically to it?
Well, what I'm writing about this week is the fact that, it would have been nice if Walter Cronkite had survived. Now, I know a lot of your listeners may not even remember who Walter Cronkite is, uh, but this old man does, and I'm sure that you do and Kim does, because he was a giant in our profession. And I was thinking of the other day when I was watching when the Trump indictment came down, this one about trying to overthrow our election, and how important that was, what a day that was. Would Walter Cronkite have done 6 minutes on every of the all the evening news broadcasts? That's what they did. They did one report, and then they had their experts, three of them, sit around and talk about it, another 3 or 4 minutes, total of 5 to 6 minutes altogether. My, I don't think so. I don't think he would have done that. I don't think the anchors, when I was a prominent journalist on the networks, would have done that. I think Brokaw, Jennings, Rather, they would have marched in to the president of the network's office and said, "We're going an hour tonight, and tell the affiliates that they're going to cancel Jeopardy for tonight, and we're going to go for an hour in a special edition that really covers this historic story." And it didn't happen. Now, I've talked to people, and people have told me, well, it's because mainstream media is not the same anymore. Well, certainly it's not the same. Walter Cronkite had 20 million viewers on his show alone every night. The major networks today barely reach that, don't even reach that. They are close, don't even reach that on their altogether. But still, they reach almost 20 million viewers, and that's 10 times more than Fox does in its biggest audience. And people don't realize that there's a lot written about cable and the wars between Fox and CNN, but their audiences are very small compared to. There's still people who sit down and watch 20 minutes of news that is straight without commentary every night. And so when a big thing like this happens, it's not for the political junkies who watch CNN and Fox. It's for the people who need to be shaken and say, okay, today is the day you should watch network news. Today we're going to give you something special. We're going to cover all the angles of this. We're going to tell you why it happened. What Trump is saying, what his allies are saying, what the Democrats are saying. Why this happened and why he's being charged. We didn't get any of that on the mainstream networks, and it's disappointing. It's embarrassing, and I'm really surprised that none of this happened. So I guess where is the leadership? As you say, Mark, where was David Muir? Where was Nora O'Donnell? Where was Lester Holt? Those are people I work with, are friends of mine, and I called them out in this column for not doing what a real anchor should have done.
This is the kind of thing. Let me see if I can find. I saw this as you were speaking, just to glance at it. I don't know. Randy says CNN this past weekend was almost wall to wall Trump. It's almost like there's an apprehension about running against him in 2024. I'm not really concerned with the apprehension part, but it opens the door to a question I want to ask you, which is, isn't part of this media environment, and I love that you've characterized it and sort of put it in a framework for us, because I didn't realize that they are quite as dominant as they are, those evening newscasts. But isn't there a sense in this current media landscape that, hey, look, if you want that, which you're talking about, with the experts and with the, wall to wall, there is CNN, MS, there are Fox outlets to do it. Does that?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if you're a political junkie, you can find it. Okay, it's there. But what I'm talking about is the other people, the other 18 to 20 million people who
Sure.
don't normally watch CNN. Okay, the people who still have television that comes in on their, on the cable network, on the cable, or even we live in the cities, but out in the other places, they still have antennas on their roof, and they
Yeah.
still watch the three major networks. And those are the people who need that one day, once in a while, to check in, and not with CNN, and I'm not talking about ABC going on, or NBC or CBS going on for an hour and having one talking head after another give their opinion. I'm talking about using their seasoned journalists, which is what we used to do, and providing at least a half hour straight of news coverage, of reporters going out and covering what's happening and explaining what's happening, not sitting there as talking heads. That's what you get on CNN and Fox and MSNBC. The news networks have the clout and the resources to do this better than anybody.
Kim?
And they did.
Steve Becker comments, is the 6:30 network newscast still relevant? And I don't dispute what you're saying at all. I completely agree with you. But I think it's also important to consider a changing media landscape. And so when you look at how the studies that show that a lot of people don't get their news from the 6:30 news anymore, they get their news from TikTok or Facebook or whatever else. Does that mean we still don't need to have leadership in journalism? No. I remember when Peter Jennings was covering the war in the Gulf and pronounced Qatar. Everyone in the whole newsroom was like, "Oh, I guess that's how we're saying it." Right? If Peter Jennings says it that way, that's how we're going to roll.
And by the way, it is the right way to say it. So
we don't have that person anymore. There
Right.
is no. So you're completely right, and you're completely right on the. It should have been like absolutely there should have been special coverage that night, the day of the indictments. But do we also have to look at how media has changed, how and where people are getting their information? They might be getting their information from you right now and not watching the network news. So does that need to be taken into consideration?
Well, I mean, it's something we can't deny, Kim. I mean, but still, nobody, well, very few on the internet have the audience. So during COVID, at the height of COVID, David Muir's broadcast, his newscast at 6:30. I don't know how much more relevant you can get in that newscast was the number one program in all of television, not number one in nightly news, not in the news programs, number
Right.
one in the entire thing. They had up to 15 million viewers a night. You don't get that for some sitcom on NBC, CBS, or ABC. So yes, they are still relevant. You can't ignore. I'm not saying you have to ignore the clips you find on Twitter and whatever. I look at Twitter as well.
Mhm.
You can take those into consider that. I saw a comment here that 6:30 news is actually 3:30. Well, that's not really true.
They
all
updated
three
for
news,
the West Coast, right?
all
Yeah.
three of them update for the West Coast, and
Yeah.
they do it at 6:30 again. And if there's been any big developments, I know I used to anchor the weekend news at ABC, and I wasn't done at 6:30 or 7 o'clock. I had to wait around till 10:30, and just in
Yep.
case something happened. So they do update.
I mean, your point, just to Kim's point, you're just to take it to where you were starting. Your point is, hey, I know that there's TikTok and all these other places, and as you say, you can't deny it, but there is still an immense audience for that evening news, was your point. And that's why you were so frustrated that evening news, admittedly, not getting the 20 million viewers that Cronkite used to get, but with still a substantial viewership, didn't do more on what you felt was this monumental day.
Yeah, it's not what it used to be, Mark, and I'm not saying it should be even, but the network news is still important, and they should be realizing that it's important. And the bosses there should have take some responsibility. But what they do is they look at the minute by minutes. Okay, there's minute by minute research to what is rating well.
We have minute-by-minute research, and you just ran afoul of it, my friend. Let me tell you. What happened with that, Tony? Was that the motherboard?
Thanks, Tony.
Okay. Oh, here he is. I don't know what happened. Jim is now, I can't hear him. Any thought
Jim,
as to
you're
why?
muted.
You're
Check
muted.
out your mic's muted, I think.
Maybe you're...
Hello.
There we go. Yeah.
you get
Okay,
agitated, you start gesticulating, and you probably hit something.
I know. It's crazy. That was my mother calling. I had to put her on hold.
Okay.
So look, that's how important you are, Mark.
All right, thank you.
But anyway, they missed an opportunity. What they do with these minute by minutes is they see that You know, you want to know why they lead with weather all the time? It's because, and you were a weatherman before one time, it's because people like the weather. And they even though it has no relevance to us in California half the time, they that's what they're going to lead with if they can. It's a shared experience. The minute by minute ratings show that's what they do. They also like to have that little kicker at the end because people like it. That's fine. They put on the news, that's fine. But when something like this happens, this is historic. This is not going to happen again in our lifetimes. Oh, I certainly hope. You know, not. I mean, it'll happen next week probably, but after Trump is gone, it's not going to happen anymore. This guy tried to overturn the audience and overturn the vote, and we should have marked that as historic, and they did not. Cronkite would have, and Jennings, Rather, and Brokaw would have.
Well, the overturning of the vote, and we got to wrap up here, but the overturning of the vote is something that has been noted along the way. It was noted at the time. It was, there was a lot of reporting on it. There was the J6 committee. And what you're saying is, just to be clear, you're saying, yeah, but these were charges brought about that overturning, and that makes it a separate story. And the reason I distinguish it is because I'm sure they're thinking, well, was there anything new here? Do you have any new reporting on it? That we kind of, this has just put a legal face on it. I suspect that might have been the kind of conversation they were having.
Well, I don't know what the conversation was. I mean, I can only imagine it, having worked in that business for 30 years. But they missed an opportunity. And
Right.
yes, it was. Maybe people are a little. I don't want to say they're tired of it, but they've been. They got a callus forming, right, about
Right.
what's going on with Trump. But as you say, Mark, this was the day. A former president of the United States hauled into federal court and charged face to face with trying to overturn the government. This should have not only been reported widely and for a long time on the network news, it should have been televised live. And I've been saying that, and there's beginning to become some kind of traction with that. This trial and the other trials that Trump is involved in, for transparency's sake, and so that the right wing can't say he's been treated unfairly, should be put on live so they can see their own people. It's going to be, again, like the January 6th. It's going to be Republicans up there testifying against him. It's going to be Mike Pence. It's going to be the former the White House chief of staff. It's going to be those people who are called on to testify against what he was doing. And the right wing needs to see that.
Yeah. Sadly, I think that the camera's not allowed in the courtroom, sort of where we're going to be. But you're right. The drumbeat of getting them in there is getting louder and louder. We're going to link to your latest piece, and I suggest you subscribe to Avila's piece. Can a Walter Cronkite-style host emerge today? He discusses the media environment that we've just touched on, and also some of what we've just spoken of as well. Grab his columns regularly. They come out every week. And Jim, we love talking to you. We'll talk to you on Friday. We'll get a sense of, we'll just talk pure politics. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay.
Thanks, Tim.
Jim Avila, everybody. Yeah, right on. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.